We are in the core of the International Broadcasting Center here in Sochi. Yannis Exarchos, the CEO of the Olympic Broadcasting Service, has welcomed us here in this important place for all the journalists. He's explained how it works, and now we are going to listen to his presentation.
OBS stands for Olympic Broadcasting Services. It's an organization created by the International Olympic Committee. It's fully owned by the IOC, and it was created to act as host broadcaster for the Olympic Games. Essentially what we do is we cover for television the whole competition and the ceremonies of the Olympic Games, and we make available additional services to the broadcasters that have bought the rights for the games. It's impossible for each one of them to do their own production, so we need to have one entity to cover everything and provide the images to all of them, and at the same time to help them customize this production, this coverage, for the audience back home, to help them with their commentators, to help them with mix-on interviews, etc. This is the job we do. OBS was created in 2001. However, this was the result of a long evolution. As television became more and more complex and television coverage more and more complex, it became apparent that you needed to have a dedicated organization to do this job rather than simply one television station coming in the venues and start shooting. I believe that we are now in an era of maturity that was brought by the pioneers of our industry, and especially by Manolo Romero, who is the person who created OBS. He's the person essentially who created the concept of host broadcasting, and he set, I think, the standard in terms of quality, the Olympic standard of quality in broadcasting. Obviously, for us that we continue his work now, the big step forward that we're doing is to embrace the digital age, because the digital revolution that people have been talking about for the last 10 years is actually happening as we speak. We're exactly at the point where the digital distribution, the digital engagement of people around the world, especially young people, becomes equally important as traditional broadcasting. So the host broadcaster of the Olympics cannot ignore this reality, and this is why all our current thinking, all the new initiatives we're taking are geared towards that direction. Sochi is exactly the perfect example. Sochi is a winter edition of the Olympic Games. Traditionally, the Winter Olympics have a more narrow audience because they turn more to traditional winter sports countries like Central, Northern Europeans or Northern America. However, we believe that there is something in the Winter Olympics, as in the summer edition of the Games, which is relevant to every person on Earth. So now in those Games, for the first time, we're using the potential that digital technologies are providing. We are broadcasting for the first time even directly to territories that had never had any familiarity with the Winter Games. We broadcast directly to 44 countries in Sub-Saharan Africa, in the Caribbean, in South Asia, in areas that were not familiar, and I'm sure that we will have many, many new people, especially young people, that will start engaging sport activity, even winter sport activity, to the extent that it's possible, and live and start tasting the Olympic way of life through this experience. During the last Olympic Games, but especially in London and here, we're introducing the concept of the Olympic News Channel, which is a continuous 24/7 news channel, which is made up of journalists and video journalists specialized in sports. They come from many different countries, more than 15 different countries. They're obviously very specialized and professional in what they do, but they still need to speak a common universal language. They're not doing news only for one country. They're not doing news for Greece, for Italy, for the US. They have to produce news stories that are relevant and interesting for a viewer anywhere in the world, as I think we're trying to do also with the coverage of sports. And this is a major challenge, and sometimes it requires that you change a little bit the way you think about producing things. The question, how can I present something that I believe is interesting? How can I make it interesting for any young person in the world, not only for the people in the country where I come from, or for the people in the country that know very well this athlete. This is, I think, the different set of mind that the journalists working in our news channel are trying to achieve. Speaking about media, whether they are analog, digital, future media, current media, and so on, for me, the technology itself is only an enabler. And I started working in the Olympic Games. I completely got captured by the Olympic spirit. And I think this is what we need to try and convey in all our efforts on the digital front as well. Because for me, the Olympics is not just a sporting event, and I think it's no coincidence that the Olympics continue being so popular among people and among audiences who are not really sports fans. This is the interesting thing with the Olympics. I think that everybody around the world sees in the Olympics and in an event like the Olympics something, a little bit of a hope, a little bit of an aspiration for the future in a world which continues being very confusing and very depressing at times. But I think the Olympic world is a glimmer of hope. So it's this hope and this coming together of people and cultures that one sees in the Olympic and looks like the most natural thing on earth, even though it's very difficult, that we would need and try and convey in the future using all digital tools.